From the California State Senate, this is Senate Spotlight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this segment of Senate Spotlight, where we discuss legislative priorities, policy, and other related issues with members of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green, and joining us again this time around is State Senator Marty Block from San Diego. Good to see you. Welcome back.
Good to be with you, Brian.
You are chair of Budget Subcommittee 1 on education, which will kind of define most of our conversation here, but I'm glad to have you back. I know it's been a busy year, and it's recess. Everybody's casual, and you and I are in coats and ties. What's wrong with this
That's
picture?
right. I don't know, but it's good to be back in Sacramento, and a lot of good things happening out in the state of California in K-12 and higher education.
Well, you were a key part of that for this year as chair of Budget Sub 1, and you had the plate spinning, looking at budget funding for both higher ed and also K through 12. And this year, where we had a sort of this balance between maintaining vigilance versus reaching for the sky. Just tell us, just generally, and we'll get into more specifics, how K through 12 fared and higher education in this final budget this year.
Well, the budget was great for K through 12, actually K through 14, including community colleges. Prop 98, which is kind of an obscure ballot measure that really impacts the budget, reserves about 40% of funding for the state for K-12 education and community colleges. And this year, a special mechanism was put in place that actually gave them much more than just 40% of the budget. Almost all the surplus went to K-12 schools. So the people who are interested in kindergarten through 12th grade, those schools are doing very well budget-wise, at least have done well this past year.
Okay, and I know there was some concern at the outset of the year, the typical concerns where the schools are getting more money, but still behind. Even though Prop 98 guarantees things, still the pure pupil spending vis-a-vis other states, I love it when I can use the phrase vis-a-vis, compared to other states, that's still an issue. How did we fare in that regard?
That's right. The Legislative Analyst's Office is guessing that we'll be about 24th or 25th among the 50 states once all the computation is done of how all the states are funded for the school year 15-16. We actually lag a couple years behind. It takes us a couple years to determine where the ranking is because a lot of the states have different budget cycles and we need to compare apples to apples. So we don't know for sure, but we think we've moved up from about 46th or 47th to about 25th. So that's a huge improvement.
Well, we started 2015 with UC President Janet Napolitano kind of drawing a line in the sand with the governor saying unless we get more money, we're going to raise tuition. There were also the concerns about fast-tracking students taking too long in college, not being able to afford this. You and your colleagues came in actually at the end of 2014 into 2015 with the legislation that was designed to wipe out the tuition hikes, the proposed hikes, create more access, more completion opportunities, and I know that made its way into the budget. It was, I think it was SB 15 and SB 18. There was the policy and the funding. Right. Tell us how that all rolled out and what kind of a difference that makes to students in college right now.
Well, the irony is, while it was a great year for the K through 14 schools, including community colleges, it was not a very good year for the UC and CSU system in terms of overall funding. Now, as a legislature and as Senate Budget Chair, Education Budget Chair, we were able to put aside more money for the higher education sector than we thought we could. One thing we did with the leadership of the Pro Tem, my bill, SB 15, gets more money into the system, particularly for the CSU, to hire more faculty members, to hire more academic advisors, hire more career counselors, so that students, when they come to the CSU, will earlier on in their academic career decide what it is they want to eventually do with their lives. Once they know what they want to do, what career they want to pursue, they'll have academic advisors help them decide what courses they need to take. And then when they get to those courses, when they actually go to the classroom, there'll be more professors, so the classes won't be overcrowded. They can actually get into the classes they need and hopefully graduate in 4 years.
How did it affect Cal Grants?
Well, we also increased Cal Grants both for the public sector, and also we prevented an 11% cut the governor had proposed for private school Cal Grants. Both very important because the privates really help California reach the number of students, serve the number of students who need higher education opportunity.
And this primarily is focused for California students too, but what is the sore point with out-of-state students? I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but they're paying more tuition anyway. International students, what's the dynamic and the tug of war there?
Well, when we hit the worldwide recession in 2008, 2009, 2010, the legislature had to make cuts to all of the state's programs, including higher education. And as we cut higher education and opportunities for California students diminished, the systems, the CSU and the University of California, decided to bring in more out-of-state and out-of-country students who could pay the full boat, pay their own way, and in fact, pay more than the full cost of their education so they could help to subsidize some of the California students when the state wasn't able to. So now that we're recovering, now that the economy's in recovery, now that there's more money going to the UC and CSU, both systems are looking at perhaps cutting back on the slots for these out-of-state and international students and providing more room then for California students.
Well, whether it's California or international, I guess we really cannot overestimate how much this access, this increased funding, this flexibility makes a difference to these students, and not just the money saved and then the money earned after they get their degree, but in so many other ways, having this fast track, getting things done in 4 years or not too much more.
Well, you know, the Public Policy Institute for California says that we need about 1.1 million more bachelor's degrees by the year 2030 now. And we're not going to get there with just the CSU campuses and UC campuses. Even if we speed up the progress of students at the CSU, if they get out in 4 years, that opens up more space behind them for more community college transfers and high school students. But even with that, we're not going to reach the goal that California needs to have a workforce that can do what California needs to do to keep its place in the global economy. And that's where a bill I had, Senate Bill 850, comes in, which allows community colleges to offer a handful of bachelor's degrees.
And that was signed last year, and then I think it was 2017, was that your earmark date, or when did you want to start rolling this out? It was a pilot project, so give us more details.
It's already rolled out. It's in some campuses, they've taken their first cohort of students who are going to be their bachelor's degree students. In San Diego, in my district, Mesa College has a group of students who've already begun a 4-year program in health information management. It's a great program that will allow hospitals and health providers all over the state to have more very well-trained employees who can really do in the information sector when it comes to healthcare what needs to be done for California's patients in light of the Affordable Care Act and the increasing demand for healthcare.
There was some concern at the outset of the year that by doing this, implementing this, you're tweaking the master plan on colleges. You're taking, and we had even talked about this when you were here in January, about taking the community colleges' eyes off the prize of helping the students that wouldn't have access otherwise, focusing too much on the BAs. As this is starting to roll and seeing this, is this confounding the critics? Are you happy with the way it's rolling out?
Yeah, very happy with the way it's rolling out. About half of the districts in the state, 36 out of the 72, applied for bachelor's degree programs. But in the pilot program, there can only be 15 colleges in the state. This is out of about 110 college campuses that can offer bachelor's degrees. The way the 15 were chosen, mainly 2 criteria. Number one, are they already doing a good job with their 2-year degrees and with their workforce training? And can they continue to do that job even if they offer a bachelor's degree? That was one criteria. Second criteria was, is there a workforce demand in that community for whatever the discipline might be that the college wants to offer to prepare students? We want there to be a job for every student who graduates from one of these community college 4-year programs. As a result of the careful screening done by the Chancellor's office, and the Chancellor of the community colleges statewide did a great job in gearing up for this program, we're finding that the colleges that have begun the test program, who've already started accepting students, are still doing a great job with their traditional mission, and they're now taking in the 4-year students. And let me be clear, the change from 2-year to 4-year isn't really a change in their mission. The mission has stayed the same, which is to prepare students for a career. What's changed are industry standards. Industries that used to require just a 2-year education are now requiring a 4-year education. So the colleges are merely keeping up with their mission. So I'm not concerned about what some people call mission creep, because to me the only thing that's creepy is not preparing our students for the workforce.
Well, 21 other states are doing this, the way I understand, so are we learning lessons from them as they're rolling this out?
We are, and in fact, because of the lessons we've learned, we're able to do it with fewer hiccups than some of the other states had, and the accreditation process is going smoothly. Like I say, some schools have already started the program. Many others will come online next fall.
Well, I know in overall higher ed funding, I know UC has announced that they are going to expand admissions for next year. There's also been concerns, though, that CSU may consider tuition increases. This is an ever-evolving issue, and I know there's been concerns even in the UC campuses about, despite this growing healthy economy, raises again for administration, and that bothers everybody. Tell us a little bit more about that dynamic as you see it. I know, for example, CSU's trustees are going to be looking at a recommendation that includes a lot of things, including this new attitude: don't depend on state spending so much anymore. It doesn't necessarily help fast-track students through the process. So I've thrown all this into the pot. What do you think about all that?
Well, it's not just how much we spend, it's how smart we spend. And hiring more faculty for bottleneck courses in particular is critical to getting more students in and out in 4 years. We're hoping that the systems, both Tim White at the CSU and Janet Napolitano at the UC, will carefully oversee the dollars that they are given by the state to make sure they're spent in the most effective way for students. That unfortunately hasn't always been the case. We also know that there are many other sources of funding for our universities, whether it's federal grants, whether it's grants from private agencies, alumni contributions. Certainly student tuition and fees play a role. We don't want to see tuition increased anymore. Students are already paying more than what Californians dreamed of paying even 20 years ago. Tuition has spiked tremendously. So we're hoping to keep tuition level. In fact, last year when Janet Napolitano first suggested a 5-year increase, 5% increase over 5 years, that's what started the discussion of more state funding for higher education. So in a way, Janet did a favor to higher ed by bringing the subject, putting the subject on the table. But ultimately, the CSU did much better than the UC last year. So this year, I want to take a look at the UC and see what we can do to help them, because they really are the research and innovation leaders of the whole country, maybe the whole world.
Well, I know a lot of both UC and particularly CSU trying to think out of the box with some of their funding and the way they're doing things, even steering students to colleges that weren't necessarily their priority choice, but that's where the lower enrollment is, doing year-long kind of programs, summertime programs. So there's a lot of extra thinking to try to get through the next few years.
And our community colleges play such an important role, either in just the first 2 years before students transfer, or now with a 4-year degree. Our community colleges are also thinking out of the box. They're having more and more dual enrollment programs with our high schools. So students who are doing well in high school can take college courses while they're still in their junior or senior year of high school that apply toward college. So theoretically, a student can finish now in 2 or 3 years if they've taken enough coursework in high school.
Just throwing all this into the pot again, kind of here's an Oprah type question for you. Considering all we're talking about, tuitions, admissions, the growing requirement to have a degree to even get a job, even in fields where a degree in the past was not necessary, the increase in the number of degrees over the last 15, 20 years, and yet even projections by 2030, we're going to have a shortage of folks with college degrees. Keeping all that in mind, what is the real value of higher ed here in California? Saying that as a former administrator, as a teacher, as a legislator, big box question. What do you say? What's the value of higher ed here?
Well, you know, a few of my colleagues and I visited Google and Facebook and Microsoft a couple of years ago, and the question we asked them was, why are they in California? I mean, land is cheaper in other places. You can get by with fewer regulations in other places, government regulations, fewer environmental regulations. And they all said, each one of those companies said they either came or stayed in California because of the higher education we offer here. Because the main thing that drives modern 21st century industry is brain power. It's the workers, it's the training and the skills they've achieved. And nowhere in the world they provide the kind of training that we do here in California. And that's the importance of higher ed. The big picture is it drives the economy of California. It brings more dollars into the state, more taxes paid by workers in the state that fund everything from our roads to our police to further schooling.
Let's look at 2016. You're wrapping up 2015. What's on your agenda policy-wise and fiscally for higher education for schools? I know obviously you're going to continue to monitor the success of SB 850. What are you looking at specifically and generally?
Well, I'm looking to expand what our community colleges can do in terms of dual enrollment. I think that's an important area. I'm hoping that we continue to see community colleges in this 4-year degree program expand, grow from 15 to many, many more than that. And by the way, they're offering this degree for only $10,000 for a 4-year program, which is unheard of. It's by far the cheapest 4-year degree in in the nation.
They really are our democracy colleges, you know, they are. So,
they really are.
Yeah.
And what's particularly important about this four-year degree, and what gets into another area I'm going to look at this year, is that most of these degrees are in areas, they're not offered by the CSU or UC. These are niche areas, kind of career technical areas that are only offered by a lot of the private for-profit schools. And some of them do a good job, but many of them don't. Many of them take our students' money. These are schools that some of which you've never heard of, that take students' money, promise them they'll be a professional making lots of dollars down the road, and then leave the students without anything. Like Corinthian colleges, you know, just this past year closed down, and their students are left with nothing for all of the money they spent over the years, all the time they invested away from their family. So we're going to look this year to more carefully monitor what these private for-profit schools do. And those that do a good job will hopefully flourish, but those that don't, we want to see them either close down or see them be much more transparent with prospective students so students know what they're getting into.
Great. We will have you back in the spring, early spring, and see how this gels, and we'll talk some more. Thank you again for coming back, and I appreciate all your clarity on these higher ed and education issues. So
always good to see you, Brian.
Good
Thank
to see you too. Senator Marty Block from San Diego. He is the chair of the Senate Budget Subcommittee on Education. He's also chair of the Senate Committee on Banking and Financial Institutions. So there you go. Busy guy. And that is this edition of Senate Spotlight. Please join us next time around as we discuss important legislative issues and policies with the newsbreakers and newsmakers of the California State Senate. From the state capitol here in Sacramento, I'm Brian Green. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching Senate Spotlight.